welcome to another in our series of Voices from Around the World. This time, let's hear from Unmesh Brahme, who is an ISSP board member who is based in Mumbai, India. So the sound quality is a little not so good because of the speed of the internet in Mumbai, but I hope you'll be interested in what Unmesh has to say about the state of sustainability in India and what we can learn from them. Hi Unmesh, how nice to see you. You're in Mumbai today, is that right?
Yes, Darcy, indeed a pleasure. Mumbai it is very wet, rainy, and full of water. I think climate change is doing something to us.
Oh, definitely. In our country, I think every part of the country is having really unusual weather. But everybody seems to be complaining about it, but nobody seems to be talking about, well, we made this happen, so what are we going to do to stop it? But that's frustrating to me. Anyway, enough about my high horse. So, would you tell me a little bit about your background and how you came to ISSP?
Yes, certainly. In fact, it has been a journey of over 2 decades now. I started my career, so to speak, by working with Oxfam on a number of projects in India to do with development aid, philanthropic relief, but more importantly, trying to look at livelihoods, natural resource management, working with a number of disenfranchised communities in far-flung corners of India. Essentially, before that, the entire driver for me to get into where I am today was my deep attachment to wildlife conservation. So that's where the journey started many, many years ago. I was into the deepest forests of India, looking at people staying in the forest, understanding wildlife issues, wanting to do something about it. But even today, I think the situation is much better. But 20 years ago, this was not a career. You could never make what I am today a career. So you had to create your own university, learn in it, have your own professors from influences and peers, and move on, which is what I did. I wrote my first proposal to Oxfam at a very young age, wanting to work with tribal communities. They essentially said that, well, this is so interesting and exciting. Why don't you give a shot? Why don't you try it out in terms of working on building capacities of NGOs in far-flung areas of the country? That's how it all started. I worked with Oxfam in a consultative capacity for close to 4.5 5 years. Moved on to work with a number of not-profit organizations. Like today, Darcy, that time also I was issue agnostic in the sense that I still believe that you have to connect various issues together. You can't say that you're working on education or health or environment. And that's a sad state of affairs today. You need to actually try and see how you can bring various players and facets together, which is what I was trying to do during my work with a number of not-for-profits and environmental aid agencies.
Well, that's very exciting. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sure. No, I was just quickly going to take you through 20 years in 5 minutes. So essentially, moved on to work in advertising.
Advertising? Wow.
That would something very interesting to apply my creativity and innovation to. But in advertising too, it was a job specifically created for the kind of aspirations I had to work with consumers and brands on social issues and environmental issues. In the format of advertising, so of course there had to be a campaign, there had to be media involved, but how do you really talk about brand social responsibility as compared to corporate social responsibility? That was my remit. I was the only employee anywhere in India at that time who was designated as head of brand social responsibility or CSR in an advertising company, which is quite a contradiction because you can't really be responsible for CSR in an agency or in a company which is all about fueling consumption.
Yes.
But my role was to, despite these issues, look at certain key brands, work with them on issues and causes, explain to them the entire concept of working beyond customer groups with stakeholder groups so that you are able to create a good reputation asset for the brand and around that create not only a campaign which benefits the customers. We were the only agency at that point of time for whom working on social issues and causes was a media option. Television was not a media option, print was not a media option. Working on causes, so cause became a media option. We ran a number of cause marketing campaigns, social marketing campaigns. That's when I think at the end of 6 years at Ogilvy, numerous awards and a number of campaigns to do with water, reproductive health care, many issues, digital divide bridging, children's health, treat children, and you name it, it was all part of a very eclectic portfolio. HSBC said to me that we are keen to revamp the way we do CSR and transform it into sustainability. That's how I moved into HSBC to head sustainability for the bank in India, with a fair amount of responsibility for working on very key projects in collaboration with the top management to do with climate change investments, social enterprise funding, and typically looking at impact-oriented philanthropy through what I call partnership and leverage funding. So that's, in a nutshell, was the career span across 18 odd years. And I said to myself, well, enough of paper pushing, enough of being part of bureaucracy. Let me be part of peopleocracy. And let me try and do something where creativity, innovation would drive everything. The rest all is inconsequential. I honestly would like to say that today sustainability needs a savior. I'm not saying I'm the one. There are many others who are better than me, perhaps. But the point is, you need to get to a stage wherein the glossy aspect of sustainability is replaced with real good work on ground. In absolute number terms, not in percentile terms, in terms of saying that, hey, I have a GRI-based report, so I'm good. Or I did $4 million of charity in 5 years, so I'm good. I think there is a need to look at governance more than reporting. Because reporting is easy. It's a matter of stringing words together and getting the accountant and the lawyer to say yes to it. Then you have everything covered in terms of people not saying that, oh, you're wrong. Because, there's a disclaimer, right? So essentially, how do you work on impact? How do you create governance strategies for the entire board and CEO to be involved in sustainability? Therefore, the name of the company, which I recently founded, it's called Sustainability CXO Partners, because we are only working with CEOs and boards on essentially getting them to define their vision, getting them to understand that what their colleagues are trying to practice as corporate social responsibility is not even the tip of the iceberg. It's essentially a very different form of charity inside a corporation, which is pretty much what development agencies are doing. At a very different level, I honestly believe that there is no way in which you can continue to work on philanthropic funding alone. So not-for-profit organizations need to look at hybrid funding. So I do a fair amount of work presently in what I call equity and social venture capital syndication, closing deals where private players are able to invest in social causes, at the same time get commercial and social returns. So that is the emerging portfolio where I'm involved in. And what else? I said to myself, there's so many things I want to do. And I think that the trigger was when I was at Yale, pursuing a fellowship in 2009 as one of the Yale World Fellows, interacted with faculty, incubated a number of projects, was staying on campus at Yale in New Haven for the entire fall semester of 2009, incubated a number of ideas, promptly came back, quit my job, trying to practice all of them one by one, including a very fancy idea of starting an organic wine company. And it's all connected in some way. It's all on the sustainability spectrum. An organic wine and a fair trade wine idea was my passion for a long time. But I said to myself, if I start creating a wine company from scratch, I won't be able to do anything else, and perhaps I will mature before the wine. And you won't the wine to the right. So then I said, well, you have to be really practical about this. So I'm working with the existing vineyard. We are transforming the way they grow grapes. We are transforming the way they produce wine, trying to make it more organic as we go. We already have 3 reds and 3 white brands in the market. So that is something which has fallen in place. Life goes on, many more things to do. But the flagship firm is Sustainability CXO Partners, working very closely with CEOs and boards on defining sustainability governance, inclusive economics, looking at business ethics, and then driving impact as a whole for society at large.
So it's not like you didn't have anything to do. So why did you want to become a board member of ISSP?
Very interesting question, which even Marcy, in fact, even we were talking earlier on, and I think Marsha was even keen to know on similar grounds, Darcy. So essentially, I think you guys have stated it all. It echoes what I believe in terms of when you say you're a doctor, you know what it means. When you say you're a chartered accountant, you know what it means as well. When you say you're a pilot, that means something. But when you say you're a sustainability professional, people just run away from you because they don't understand what you're all about. Your family almost is on the verge of disowning you because it's not a formal career. And at the end of the day, the tools and techniques of practicing sustainability are still a far cry away. So, what I believe vis-a-vis ISSP is it's a very interesting grouping of practitioners who believe that practitioners also need to learn, need to make a connected impact, and need to define a purposeful, mission-driven way of practicing sustainability, which perhaps may go beyond reportage. Reporting may be part of it, but would look at various verticals, how they are connected, and how you can make concerted impact. So much so that I would honestly believe that ISSP has the ability, the future potential to set standards to ensure that whosoever carries the ISSP logo with him or her is able to conclusively say that there is a certain way of practicing sustainability, and if you practice it in a particular way, and that way has to be defined, by the way, you will be creating success for a number of stakeholders, commercially speaking, socially speaking, and even speaking from the standpoint of government. How do you really have public-private partnership? So there is a world out there which has to be, if I may, reformatted, because I think our hard disks are pretty much crowded right now with sustainability thinking, because it's not enhanced, it's not critical path oriented, it's not impact oriented.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about what's happening there in India. What are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing? And well, I'll just leave it at that right now. So from a sustainability perspective, in let's say the next 10 years, what are the biggest challenges that you think you face?
Well, many. One, the biggest challenge is chief executive officers and boards of not-for-profits, corporations, and even government entities seem to have pull over their eyes, in the sense that people are not seeing with clarity what sustainability really means. Increasing the amount of money deployed into charitable causes is seen by some as sustainability. Yet others working on, let's say, involving suppliers in the supply chain, providing raw materials to a company, and ensuring their well-being is sustainability, which is also true. For yet others, working on climate change, carbon footprint is sustainability. For such people, there is no connect with other social issues. And this has been a divide in India for as long as I can remember. People working on tiger conservation would not work with tribal issues. People working on indigenous forestry would not understand issues on health and environment. People working on education would hate to talk to people working on gender. And I think all of these are connected in some very intrinsic way. It's at the end of the day how to empower people, community, and nation to really deliver up with their best abilities. So this thinking is not there in India today. There is also this interesting aspect at RC of how corporations, multinational corporations, practice strategy A, which is good in countries like the US or parts of Europe. But in India, they would not look at practicing the same really world-class strategy, primarily because India is a growing market, which means if you don't do any sales in Europe and America, you can do sales in India, which means the teeming millions could buy. So it's not about saving the teeming millions from a futuristic disease, for example, or working with them on HIV/AIDS, or trying to bring them out of poverty. It's a question of how you could sell to them and how they could buy from you, even in tiny parcels. And I'll give you a quick example. Extended producer responsibility is not even known in India.